a lot of the Bears' attention in this offseason has been in the trenches, and that's rightfully so, right? But there's another position that the Bears have had some notable losses and gains, and that's the wide receiver position.
Absolutely. Letting Keenan Allen walk while bringing in Olamide Zaccheaus and Devin Duvernay, Bears have filled out the wide receiver room via free agency, but it still could be an area to focus on in this upcoming draft.
Yeah, there doesn't seem much buzz about the Bears taking a receiver at number 10. Obviously, they took Odunze last year at number 9, but we're going to discuss the many possibilities of who they might take on day 2 or day 3 of the upcoming draft. That and more on this episode of the House Huddle Podcast. And we're going to jump right into it because an intro is being created. We're rebranding this a little bit. We're building this up, but we're going to get right into it. So huddle up. Welcome to another episode of the House Huddle. As always, I'm Rob Schwartz with Bear Goggles On. And I just want to throw out there, on April 6th, we are going to be doing a live mock draft where you, the commenters, you, the listeners, the viewers on YouTube, if you're listening to this, you got to go to YouTube. Check it out. April 6th, we'll probably do an 8:30 p.m. start Central Time, and we'll promote that as it gets a little bit closer. But check that out. It'll be a lot of fun. You'll have input on what we do in that mock draft. But as always, with me, my good buddy and co-host, Justin Oniemi.
All right. Huddle up. So, Rob, I feel like taking a look at the receivers is a great idea. I feel like this positional group is kind of like the draft overall. There's some guys at the top, but once you get through a couple, then it's more so about the depth of what the position holds. And so I think in this episode, I think we should talk about some of the players that you could get in day 2, day 3. I think we have a great setup in terms of how we're going to break it down. So do you kind of want to tell our Hallis huddlers how we're going to do this?
Yeah, so the way we did it, we kind of broke it down into like groups of like how players are. So we have a couple speedsters that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a couple slot guys, and we're going to talk about some of the bigs, some of the bigger guys who work the boundary. So, yeah, that's what we're going to get into. Obviously, some of the bigger names are going to be going on day 1. There's no reason for us to bring those up right now because
go ahead. Sorry.
I don't think wide receivers in the cards. And the only guy that you could consider could be Travis Hunter, who could play both ways, but there's no way he's making it to 10.
I also think this episode is not necessarily on, will the Bears take these particular players or how would the Bears get these players? But we are putting it out there that whether they're looking for an upgrade in the slot, although I do think the signings that they made in free agency are kind of like slot guys. To me, the bigger need might be like a bigger receiver to back up Rome Odunze. But that's not us saying that that's where they might go, but just kind of saying what the possibilities might look like in this draft.
Yeah. So I guess let's just get right into it. All right. So this guy, Jalen Royals, look, I've seen a lot of mock drafts. Personally, I have him as a second-round pick, so I don't think he's necessarily going to be there for them at 30. Well, he'll be there at 39 and 41, but I don't think he's worthy of those 2 picks. But there is a chance that he could drop, and if he does drop, he's definitely a guy to go for in the 3rd round. I have my notes on him. Do you want to go first, or did you have anything that you wanted to bring up?
No, I thought you kind of take this guy. I got the next guy.
Got it. Okay. So for me, looking at my if I can find it. So he doesn't have the fastest long speed. I was a little disappointed. I thought he'd get into the 4.3s. He was a 4.42, so it's not slow by any means, right? He's got a 1.49 10-yard split, which is one of the faster ones that actually happened at the combine. So he's got great acceleration off the ball, right? One of the more explosive guys off the line of scrimmage. But what I have here is he can stretch the field with his speed and has become one of the better straight line weapons in this draft class. Excellent hands. He doesn't rely on his body too much to catch the ball. Projects as a yak monster in the NFL if he's in the right offense. Get him into open space and watch him succeed. He's a versatile wide receiver who can play inside and or outside. Not the most physical guy, right? He's 6 foot 205, so he's not small by any means. But if some of the more aggressive guys, the press corners, can kind of get him off of his routes. And that also kind of limits his route tree too. He's a little bit limited there, but still raw, can develop, and he didn't play against the best competition either throughout his collegiate career.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I am going to say anything about Jalen Royals here, it actually does lead perfectly into the next guy. So I will say this, and you could put up his name if you'd like. So this isn't our speedsters category. We're talking Jalen Royals and we're talking Isaiah Bond. And with both of them, I feel like the way they look on field, on film, is faster than what those 40 times show. And so take that as you will. I mean, they do the 40 for a reason, and it has definitely gotten guys drafted a full round earlier when they flash in that area. But so does the speed that you demonstrate on the field. And so with Isaiah Bond and with Jalen Royals, these are guys, if you want someone to stretch the field vertically. Bond has good hands, tracks the ball very well. But as you said with Royals, I think could improve in route running. Now, how much of that is coaching and how much of that is just raw talent and ability? I'd like to think that, coaching at the NFL level can help you in those areas. So another thing about Bond, though, and I don't know, Rob, if you have a comment on this or want to respond to this real quickly, when you look at his tools, the tools seem better than the production. And I know we talked about that with different position groups, with some of the DNs, like Shamar Stewart, but as a receiver, you would like to think those tools would translate to production, and that wasn't always the case with him. So as these guys are both speed guys, you mentioned Royals might struggle against press coverage. I think they both could in a way, but that wouldn't be their game.
Yeah, I will say the only thing I want to say about Isaiah Bond is he's actually one of my favorite receivers in this draft class. Like, I've been on him for quite a while. I actually only have a 3rd round grade on him, so I think they'd have to hope he gets to 72. But I could even see him going in the 2nd round. Like, that's just how late 2nd round. Like, that's just how good I think he is. It's funny because I was putting the slide together, and Logan, my middle son tonight, actually saw it and was like, "Dad, I was just playing with him in the NCAA 25 game, and he's got superstar status on there." I was like, "Well, he rightfully should." Because I think he's going to be one of those guys that kind of like goes under the radar with this wide receiver group, not in the 1st round, but I think he's going to be one of those productive guys.
Hey, let's hope. There are some guys on this list that whether the Bears draft or not, I'm going to keep my eye on them and kind of track and see how their early careers start and how their careers develop. So All right. So they might go look for a guy that can stretch the field vertically. But another area we talked about would be slot receivers. And the first guy, even before we get to Jaylin Noel, we mentioned Tez Johnson. We drafted him in a previous mock draft. I would just quickly say, really good in the slot, had a slower 40 time than you would expect, and is very, very much undersized. So if you want to know more about him, go ahead and look at, I think that was our mock 1.0, Rob. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that is correct.
All right. So what do you got on Jaylin Noel out of Iowa State?
Yeah, so Jaylin Noel out of Iowa State, 5'10", $195, also blazing fast, 4.39, 40 time with a 1.5, 110-yard split. The thing is, though, he's kind of the opposite of the other 2 guys we talked about. He doesn't play as fast on the field as he does. He did it running the combine. So one of the better route runners in the draft class, though. Again, another guy who's going to struggle at the line of scrimmage against those physical press corners. However, what he can do is if he can prevent from being engaged at that point, he can create separation with his footwork and his twitchiness. He's got a lot of twitchiness right there off the line of scrimmage. He's ideal in the slot where he can work those short and intermediate routes. Again, despite the 4.39 speed, he struggles to win vertically. The biggest knock on Noel is his concentration drops. He had too many of those. He also needs to increase his strength in hand fighting, again, to just beat off those DBs in the NFL. I also just want to note, we didn't even touch on this prior to, but go back to mock draft 2.0, and we also talked about Xavier Restrepo as a guy who we drafted in that draft, and also a guy who I look at could be a good slot corner option. But again, we went in depth in that draft. Go check that out if you want more information.
And I also want to just continue to point out that when you play out of the slot, a lot of it is your natural ability, but I feel like schematically, I still just want to keep tipping my hat to Ben Johnson. And if you get a guy who kind of knows how to get open, I think schematically he will find ways to utilize these types of players. So It would be exciting to see Jaylin Noel working out of the slot. Again, I don't know in the draft where he would go exactly. What do you have on him, Rob, did you say?
I have a 4th round pick on him, 4th round grade.
Currently, the Bears don't have a 4th. So it's kind of like, would they trade up for a guy like this if they trade
guys fall
on near their spots and pick up a 4th round pick?
Yeah, but guys fall. Like, I mean, if you look at some of these mock drafts that even the top analysts are doing, like sometimes it'll be crazy. Some of the names you see in the 2nd and 3rd round, guys fall. Like, it happens every year. So
going all the way back to Royals, you said you have a 2nd round grade on him. I've seen him slip quite a bit farther than that in some mocks, almost to a Jack Sawyer type level.
Yeah, I've seen Isaiah Bond in the 5th in some of these simulators. So
we'll see. Like we started the show, we said it's a deep position. And so, therefore, these guys could go in different orders. Everyone's board might be a little different.
And look, the Bears have a wide receiver 1, a wide receiver 2, and you got to think that Zacchaeus is going to be the wide receiver 3. So it's like who they're bringing in right now is going to be taking Tyler Scott's job. Duvernay is going to be strictly a returner. We saw Rondell Moore come in, who went up to, Minnesota, and McCole Hardman came in. He went up to Green Bay. Duvernay ended up becoming the guy they ended up signing. But all 3 of those guys were basically return specialists at that point in their career. So
you're going to be forced to play the what-if game twice a year with watching both those guys.
Yeah, 100%.
So, Rob, before we get to big bodies.
Yeah.
Oh, do you want to build it up for me?
Oh, I'm going to build it up. It up. We have not done the original Justin and Rob segments. We got one of them tonight. It's not Rob's rants. It's This Just In. So for those of you who have not been a part of the show before, these things are awesome. Justin throws out a lot of cool, fun stats. And in this case, he's going to throw out 2 different players with different stats, different accolades. Hit the pause button when I throw this up there. Try to figure out who you think this is going to be, because we're not going to pause and wait. We're going to kind of give this away
right player pretty quickly here. And normally I like Rob to play along too, but I was too excited about this. So Bob and Rob in our pre-show planning did get to kind of guess through these. All right, so take a look. Player A, a little shorter, obviously, than player B and smaller in weight. So we looked at their measurables. You see it up there. I'm not going to read it to you all.
I'll pause though. It's not Tez Johnson type weight, because he's 165.
All right, I'll go very quickly here. Player A, 5'9" and 5/8 inches, 191 pounds. Hands are 9.5 inches. Arms are 30.5 inches. Okay, now here's the thing. 40, a 4.54 40, not blazing fast. 1.57 split. This player is a first-team All-American, 3 times All-Conference, and was a multi-sport standout. Some of these things I said are going to sound familiar with player B. Bigger, 6'2.5", 203 pounds. Hands a little smaller, actually, 8 3/4 inches. Arms about the same, but a little longer, 31. Now the 40 and the 10-yard split, almost identical. 4.57 seconds, 1.54 for the 10-yard. First team All-American, 2 times All-Conference, multi-sport standout. All right, so real quick, a clue that I had to give Bob and Rob, one of these players is a current prospect, one is not. And the one that is not has a Bears connection. One more clue. In addition to being multi-sport athletes, these 2 also are multi-positional in football. And
Interesting.
And one more nugget about player B. He led his team the past 2 seasons in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. And now you better pause, because once I say this last one, I'm giving it away. Not only did player B lead his team in those 3 categories, he led all of college football. And he is my new draft crush. So, Rob, do you want to reveal?
Yep. Give me 1 second so I can get the right slide up.
All right. So player B is my new draft crush. This is Nick Nash. Before we go too deep on him, player A with the Bears connection is a former prospect, Antoine Randall L. So the Bears connection being he came over from Detroit with Ben Johnson. He's going to be the Bears receiver coach and assistant offensive coach. And as I looked more and more into Nick Nash's story, he's a very interesting prospect. So he started at San Jose State as a quarterback. Did play a little bit, but not much. Waited out his time. And it was clear he wasn't going to get an opportunity as quarterback. And so to me, you could have got up in your feelings. You could have let that take you down. You could have tried to enter the transfer portal and go somewhere else and say, I deserve my chance. He learned a new position and performed it very, very well. Became all conference 2 years in a row. As I said, led his team. And this year actually led all of college football in receptions, receptions, yards, and touchdowns. That's the Triple Crown. Very rare.
16 touchdowns, by the way.
Absolutely. And Antoine Randall, like, if you remember, I mean, some of us are not up there in age, but I am. Undersized, as we saw on the slide. So many doubters about could he be a quarterback, and he performed it very well. Now, his story is a little different because in college he did play quarterback the whole time through. But to make the jump to the NFL, it was like, no, you're too short, you're this, you're that. And again, he could have let that take him down. He became I would say, fairly, I wouldn't just say serviceable, better than average receiver. Went to the Super Bowl and had a great career. And so I think should Nick Nash end up on the Bears, it would be interesting to have Randall L. kind of be one of his mentors or coach. Nash is a big body guy, as you can see there. As a former quarterback, really sees the game and is a smart, intelligent receiver. And the production, it's there. Now, could you say he went up against slightly lesser competition? Yeah, but that production it speaks a lot. So if he's sitting there in the 5th, 6th round, I don't know why you wouldn't want to potentially take a guy like him. Now, the age is up there, Rob. I know you oftentimes call that out, but this whole draft class kind of has some older guys in it. So what is your take on Nick Nash? You didn't sound like you had a lot of opinions of him until I brought him up. And now with him being my crush, is he coming on, in your area?
Yeah. So he's currently a 6th round grade for me. The age definitely weighing a big part in it. I forgot to put the 0.7 in there. He's actually going to be 25 in August.
Still younger than Velus.
But what I love about him is that he's just one of those guys that, like, he's a football player. Bob Weiss always talks about we want football players, and he is a football player. The guy just goes out, gives his heart, puts it all out on the field, like every single time he's out there. Isn't afraid to block, which I think is a big thing, right? We heard Ben Johnson, to get the rock, you got to block. He definitely could be a factor too. We talked about in our mock draft 2.0, we took Tyler Warren, and we talked about how he's like one of those guys that can be, he's a tight end, but he can do all these other things because we've seen it in Penn State. Well, guess what? I mentioned that Nash scored 16 receiving touchdowns, but guess what? He also threw 2 passing touchdowns in 2024. So he definitely could bring a little bit of fun and mojo, I think, to this offense. And
he would throw a better trick throw than Jameis Williamson did in the Detroit or Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen here in Chicago. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to take a guy in the 6th round and you're like dart throws is what I consider, late 5th, all of 6th and all of 7th. Those are just all dart throws at that point. In fact, I think it's 2% of 6th round prospects actually see a second contract with the team that drafts them. So yeah, look, I would definitely be on board with this, and you're pushing me enough where I'm like, do I need to revisit his film and maybe put a 5th round grade on him?
So no matter what, if he doesn't get selected by the Bears, he's a guy I'm going to keep my eye on. I'm just curious what's going to go on with him. At that age, you mentioned second contract. He probably only is going to get that second one. It'd be hard to imagine getting the 3rd unless he surprises us all. But the 40 time, not great, but he kind of plays better and faster than that, I would say. So we'll see.
Real quick, though, is Denver going to look to draft him? Because is he going to be Sean Payton's new
Taysom Hill?
Taysom Hill?
Hey, it wouldn't be bad, right?
Right. Hey, worked out for him with the Saints. So
yeah. All right. So that's one big-bodied option.
Yeah, we got one more big body guy left. Look, real quick while I'm switching the slides.
That's my boy.
These are the guys that used to be coveted in the NFL, right? The big body boundary receivers. These were like your number one prototypical guys. But you kind of mentioned it a little bit with Ben Johnson. Not just Ben Johnson, but with how the NFL is becoming with slot receivers. Slot receivers have become a bigger part of the game. I think guys like Wes Welker kind of helped that out a little bit. Who's the other guy who played for the Patriots? White guy, Edelman.
Oh, I knew he was white.
Edelman is another one who could also kind of like brought that onto the scene. But now you're seeing guys more like the zero type receivers actually who play both on the outside and the inside. And just somebody who came to mind was Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? Because that guy has flourished in Ben Johnson's system up in Detroit. So if we can get our hands on a guy that can play that role, and you have the two outside guys in DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, like we're setting this team up pretty well, I think. So
Pat Bryant out of my alma mater, Illinois. You can tell right there he's not fast. He's not necessarily quick, but knows how to use his body. It is a big body, as we're pointing out here. Good hands. I think has a good route tree, but with probably every college guy, you could expand in that area. You can improve and grow in that area. But I'd say production-wise, he's impressive, and you can't just be 6'3", you know what I mean? So he does.
I mean, I can because I am, but
well, you can. My arms can. Thanks for the arm shout out, by the way, on the last episode.
That's right.
So, but he's falling in drafts. I mean, he's a later round pick as well, but you couldn't tell at Illinois. He was one of their best receivers. So I don't know. I think, like you said, once you're throwing darts, you might as well throw it towards a guy who's been productive against Big Ten competition.
Yeah, like here's the quick snippet that I have on him, but I'm going to throw this out there because this is one of the favorite names of the Hallis Huddle podcast. I have him written down here as a slower, less athletic George Pickens. He's just one of those guys, you throw it up on the boundary, and he's just going to go up and get it. He has a 37.5-inch vertical, right? George Pickens only jumped 33 inches. Pat Bryant, 37.5 inches. This guy can go up and get it. He's got sticky hands. Contested catch guy. The route tree is a little bit limited, but he's one of those guys that like he's going to use his body to control it. You're going to get him in there. He's got one of the best catch radiuses in this draft class. So 6th round draft pick out of Illinois. Sign me up.
All right, and we got one more bonus for you all. We have talked about this in previous episodes. The Bears have a tendency, at least under Ryan Poles, to pay quite close attention to Senior Bowl performances. And so we decided there's one receiver who really stood out in the Senior Bowl. He actually won MVP. So we, of course, are talking about, is it Josh? Jack, I'm sorry. Like Bob said, when you're talking, you can't think of names. Yep. Jack Beck. Strong receiver. Really good hands, not the fastest by any means. But again, it's how you play. So able to get open, able to catch the ball in contested situations. What else do you got, Rob?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I couldn't find official combine numbers on him, but he ran a 4.55. So like you said, not fast. But what's interesting is what I'm finding as for his 10-yard split was a 1.49, which puts him in one of the faster numbers. So if that's true, he could have some explosion off the line of scrimmage. But really what it comes down to for me is I have a 4th round grade on him. I've seen him as high as the 2nd round grade, 3rd round grade. My issue is I've gotten burned by TCU receiver once before in Jalen Reagor. I was a huge Reagor fan, and he went in the 1st round before Justin Jefferson, by the way. Then ended up in Philadelphia, but went back to Minnesota and didn't do crap, right?
That didn't play well.
No, it didn't play well, but it burnt me to the point where I'm like anti-TCU wide receivers, especially in this case where Beck only did it for 1 year. Couldn't do it very much, couldn't do much of anything his first 2 years at LSU. He did lead the team in catches at 43, but didn't produce, only had 3 touchdowns. But like you said, tough as nails, doesn't mind taking hits, will get into traffic, solid hands.
Could play out of the slot or outside.
Yeah.
Some versatility in that regard. So,
and like you said, won the Senior Bowl. Shout out to his brother who tragically died in the Louisiana. Was it New Orleans? I think it was New Orleans specifically. Tragedy down there. So
yeah. So with a lot of these guys, will they end up with the Bears? Who knows? But We gave you a little bit of information on them. Please look into them or others. Of course, as always, like, subscribe, comment. We want to hear what wide receivers do you have your eye on as potential Bears draftees in this upcoming draft. And
yeah, I completely abandoned the banners. I'm a horrible producer tonight. I made them, and I forgot to put them up. But yeah, so hit the subscribe button. But the big thing is come back. There's going to be more draft content coming out this week. I'm going to do a solo episode some point midweek this week. So it'll either come out Wednesday or Thursday. So come back and check that out. We love the support. It's been fantastic.
Rob, don't feel bad that you kind of messed up on the banners. I think you were just too excited about this, Justin.
I was.
We need a Rob's Rants, too, coming up soon. So
I mean, I got some solos coming up. So
there's been too much positivity out there with the Bears offseason. They're winning it again. So I don't know when the rant's coming. Maybe there's stadium stuff, or I don't know.
It could be after draft night. Maybe I'm mad about who they take. Who knows?
All right, so huddlers, look out. There's a rant coming.
That's right. Until then, though, as always, bear down, claws up.
Look.